for AWS, which at the same time also applies to other, cloud providers. They try to, create areas of specialization. We have people that, they are focused on, let me say, AWS security. People like that are people that work more with, security, identity, and compliance. When we talk about, inspector, AWS inspector, AWS WAF, AWS firewall, artifact, detective, security hub, and so on. We have, people like the DevOps engineer, which, because we have DevOps, we have SysOps, and for us, we work more with, the let me say the basics, like working with compute cloud, working with containers, working with storages, working with security, some part of security, working with automation on cloud. These are some of the things that we do. And so today I will try as much as possible to to talk about some key resources, talking about EC2. I'll try to talk about IAM. I will try at the same time to talk about virtual private cloud, and also S3, RDS, and let me say cloud formation may come in when we're taking our Terraform class and Route 53. I will try my best, and if I cannot finish any of them today, definitely we will continue in our next in our next section. So basically, as you can see, when you log into your AWS management console, what you actually have on the first login is just like a list of your recently viewed services on AWS. It gives you some welcoming, it gives you some health check on AWS. Maybe health check basically means the status of AWS in the recent days. Do they have any downtime? Do they have any any service problem? And at the same time, you have your cost and your that's your cost and the usage over the last month, and also your, let me say, your forecasted month cost for the current month. Now, if you now want to go forward, let us say, okay, today I am going to start with IAM, because IAM is an important thing, and is it's a core it's a core cloud service, because in AWS we try to talk about services. We are not like Azure that they try to just put their own things the way they like, but we talk about services because in AWS, for every services, you can have interactions within them, and based on this interaction, you can have a compounded solution. Now, AWS IAM is actually called Identity and Access Management. Can you still see my screen, please? Can you see IAM dashboard? Please let me know if you cannot see.
Yes, boss.
Oh, good. So AWS IAM is is the identity and access access management. And basically what we do here is just talking about identity. But before I go there, you need to understand what we call the cloud computing model. Cloud computing models that we have three types of cloud computing model. We have the platform as a service, we have infrastructure as a service, and we have SaaS, software as a service. And a simple example of this is when we talk about software as a service. Software as a service basically means just like a completed product that is given to you to work on. And this particular product is managed by the service provider or the product owner. An example of software as a service that we know is Gmail. Gmail is a completed product, is a SaaS product. We also have Microsoft Offices. These are SaaS products. When we talk about platform as a service, I'm actually going back there because I'm going to refer to some of these things where I start talking about AWS resources or AWS services. When we talk about platform as a service basically means that this ones allows you to just focus on, let me say, your deployment and management of your application. However, the underlying infrastructure, let me say, like the hardware, the operating system, is the responsibility of the provider. An example of An example of platform as a service is when we're talking about AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda allows you to run your code without provisioning any infrastructure, and you are charged based on based on the runtime and the CPU consumption of that particular code you are running. That's an example. We also have Elastic Beanstalk. I'm going to show you some of these services as we go on with AWS with this class. Then the third one, which is infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service come in very handy, especially when it comes to infrastructure engineer and DevOps engineer. Infrastructure as a service allows you, you are the one that is managing the networking, the compute, that's the hardware, the storage, and it gives you, let me say, like the highest level of management over your resources that you have on cloud. And there is flexibility. You can do things the way you like. So here, when we talk about what's it called? When we talk about IAM, IAM is a kind of what's it called, services that allows you to to manage to manage the access of users to different resources that you have on AWS, and at the same time also allows you to also restrict particular users, and also communication between services on AWS, because not just users communicate on can able to access resources. Even resources in AWS can interact within one another. Now, when we talk in AWS, there's also what we call region and availability zone. When we talk about a region is just like a geographical area. Right now, I am in Europe. So Europe is a particular region. Africa is a region. You get me? And within a region, you have what we call availability zones. Availability zones are just, let me say, subsets of a region. And in an availability zone, you can then have, let me say, different data centers. Now, how do you get to know the the region where you are presently working on? Because on cloud, it's important for you to know, okay, I am working on this particular region, or my resources are provisioned in this particular region. And not all services are limited to regions. Some services are what we call global services. An example of a global service is IAM, Identity and Access Management. You can see by the top right here, you can see global. That is to tell you that IAM is a global service. That is, it is available. It's not limited to a particular region. Let me click on EC2, for example, here now. By the time I click on my EC2, for example, you will see here that I have that my location has changed to what? Not not Virginia. You can see here that is, I am now in North Virginia region, and in this particular region, I only have one security group. I don't usually work here because it's not very okay for me. And one thing about cloud is when we talk about latency. So let me go to my own region now. If you come here now, you can see lots of regions. You can have East US, you have America, Africa, you have Asia. These are all the regions that we have in AWS. Now let me go to my region, because I'm very close to Germany here. So if I click on Europe, Frankfurt, you will see that in this particular region now, I have my resources. This is where I work most of the time. You will see my EC2 instances that are shut down. You can see key value pairs. You can see security group. You can see volumes on this account. So this is first thing that you need to note about. Another thing is that, okay, let us now go back. If you also click on this EC2 global view, EC2 global view allows you to see to see all your resources that are provisioned in different regions, that basically EC2 resources that are provisioned in different regions. If I scroll down, you will see the different regions that we have in AWS. You can see Asia, Europe. You can see the number of, some are still loading. You can see the number of VPCs that I have. You can see the number of volumes that I have in different regions. You can see the number of subnets and subnets and instances that I have. Now let us go back to our IAM, which is actually the core thing. If you want to look for any service on AWS, if you know the name, you can actually type IAM on the search console, and you have the option and you click on IAM. Now, IAM, like I told you, identity and access management, service that is provisioned and all that is created by AWS. And if you want to use an IAM, basically there are two things, or let me say three things that people work with on IAM. You work with users. We have, this is your user. We work with roles. We work with policies. Now, what do I mean by users? And we also work with identity provider. It is most times advisable that when you have an organization, for example, okay, let me say, let us talk about we as an individual now. if I am an individual, I don't have like an active directory or anything like that. I want people to be able to access my resources on AWS. I can actually create a new user. Click on user here. When you click on new user, you can create a new user. You can see some users I've created. You can see Adebola, you can see Nur, you can see their user group. This is just a normal user that that you can create on AWS. And if you want to create a new user on AWS, all you just have to do is just click on add user. When you click on the add user option, you can see the option to give the username. Let us say, okay, you want to create a user, let me say daas, for example. Then AWS has what we call AWS access type. We have what we call access, programmatic access, and what we call management access. Programmatic access is actually being used for AWS CLI, AWS SDK, or most times development tools. And a user with programmatic access needs, I'm sorry, a user with programmatic access also needs to have what AWS console access before he or she, or let me say, before that particular user can be able to use these two features, because it's actually most times limited. So, but this user I want to create now, I'm not giving the user programmatic, what's called programmatic access. I'm going to give my user AWS management console access. So I'm just going to, basically select AWS management console access. Then it tells me, do I want to generate a password, or do I have a custom password I want to use, or I want to generate a password, I want an auto-generated password. And is the user required to reset the password after the first login? I'm going to use a custom password. I can use sorry, let me try and create one password here now. Okay, I just created the password for this user. And the next thing I do now is just click on the next option to get the permissions for this particular user. Now, the permission for this particular user, it's now based on two things. Now, you can add a user to what we call a user group. You can attach existing permissions directly to a user, and you can also copy permissions from one user to another user. As you can see here, I have created some groups, and these groups I call a group cloud admin, basically giving them administrator access. I call another group EC2 admin, giving them, what's it called it? AWS. Okay, these two are the same thing. ECS admin, giving them AWS EC2 container registry full access, and one more, what's what called it? One more permission. I don't know. I'm trying to click on the permission to see the okay. They have Amazon EC2 full access and EC2 container registry full access. This is just the policies that are given to the, or let me say, the permissions that are given to this user. But I don't want this user to be part of any group, because it's actually good when you have a group and you can add user to that group. So I'm just going to attach direct policy to my user, change type. I'm going to attach direct policy to my user, and here you can see lots of permissions. Lots and lots and lots and lots of permission. So if I want my user to be able to have administrative access, I can just click on administrative. As you can see, that's a job function type. And the next thing, I just follow the next option. If I want to give it a tag, I can say, let me say, function, for example. I can just give the tag function daas admin, for example. And I click on next. And you can see this is like a review of what I've created. The username is daas, and this is the permissions that is given to that user, and then I can click on create user. So once I click on create user, automatically my user has been created. You can see, so you can send an email to that person with with the instruction to log in and that thing like that. So this is done. Let me close this. I am not going to log in with this particular this particular user. And if I also want to log in, you can see the link there to log in with it. So you can see now that this user have been created, part of the users that I have now, and not attached to any group, and the user has never logged in before. So these are some of the things. Then another thing when it comes to AWS identity and access management is when we talk about MFA. MFA is one of the best practices that that is allowed, that protects your user and your your access to to AWS console and even some of what you do. And it also serves as let me say multi-factor authentication. And when you want to create a user, for example, if you click on this user, for example, I'm just trying to click on that user, for example. If you come to security credential, you can see that assign MFA device is not assigned. So if I want to assign an MFA device, maybe I want to use Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator, for example, I can click on manage, manage MFA device, select virtual MFA, and the moment I click this, it will generate a QR code for me. If I'm very correct, you can see QR code. I scan this and I can use this to, I can put in some MFA code that will be generated for me to have like 2FA on my user account. I just want to show you this, but most likely you may have, tax or, assignments that have to do with, MFA, that is assigning or attaching MFA to what user accounts on AWS. So another important thing that we have here is also called roles. There is a good rule when it comes to cloud cloud identity and access management. We'll tell people don't use users, use roles. What I mean by don't use roles is that you can have just one role, and that role, you can use that role to create specific, or let me say specific permission to a group of to a group of people or anything. Hello, someone is saying something. Is anybody there? Okay. You can use that IAM role, which is an identity, to give permissions to a group. And IAM role, sometimes, you can also have IAM, to create policies. Policies, basically, you can attach policies to your EC2 instances. You can have IAM roles that actually, allow EC2 instance, for example, to be able to read, to be able to read, to be able to read secrets from AWS, secrets manager. I created a role some time ago. This role is called SSMS. AWS have what we call session manager, and session manager allows you to be able to, to access your to be able to access your AWS EC2 instance right on the on the web without going through SSH or anything. So for me to allow that particular permission for session manager, I need to create a role. When I created this role, you can see SSM for EC2, I created this role sometime, and I gave this policy. I gave the policy to what, Amazon EC2 role for SSM. I gave it SSM manage instance call. I also gave it SSM, full access. So this, I also created an a trust relationship. A trust relationship between what, to allow to allow communication to what, EC2 on Amazon. So this is use cases of roles. So you can have this profile attached to your to your AWS instance. Then the third one I also want to talk about is identity provider. Identity provider is very, very good when you have like an active directory in your organization, and you can just instead of having to create users one after the other, you can actually add your your AD to to AWS, and you can see options. You can see do you want to add SAML or OpenID connect to to your AWS, and this actually gives users permission, that is users in your in your AD permission to be able to access AWS resources. And at the same time, it's not very simple like we have for Azure. Azure is owned by Microsoft, and there is simple integration between the two hands. So do we have any question on do you have any question on this before I go to other services? Okay, I have a question here. He said, what kind of access do they set for a pipeline from Git repo to EC2? Now, AWS have their own repository that you can actually use. And on AWS, you can let me a simple repo, for example, that we have in AWS. Let me call container registry, for example. You can give permission. You can create like an IAM role that actually allows you to be able to get pick images from your AWS container registry. You get me? All you just have to do is just search for the particular type of service that you have. You get me now? And at the same time, search for the particular service that you want, and give the normal permission that you need to, or give the limited, we call it principle of least privilege. So give that permission to that particular role and give access when necessary. Then another example I can also give you is when it also comes to what's called a secret management. AWS Secret Manager just allows you to store secret, that is password, for example. It allows you to store, let me go to Secret Manager, for example. If you can see my screen, Secret Managers allows you to store secrets. You can store the database passwords in this and put that database password in your AWS. So take, for example, you want to create a new secret, for example, and you just want to create like a normal random secret. You can see username, password. You need what we call an encryption key. An encryption key is basically just, let me say, I don't know the encryption algorithm that AWS uses, but it should definitely be AES 256 CBC. And this encryption key is actually what encrypts that particular credential that you want to store here. This is what encrypts it. So if you want a role, if you want to create a role that allows AWS or EC2 instance to be able to pick database password here so that they can use to communicate to your AWS RDS, all you have to do is you have to just create a new role, and this new role that you create must have the permission to what? To be able to read secrets, and also have permission to this your encryption key in what? In AWS. Now, when it also comes to encryption key, I think I'm already digressing. Encryption key in AWS, we have what called KMS. KMS is key management system. That's where you have your AWS encryption key. AWS is open because we are very, very nice in AWS. We can allow your user to have, a customer managed key. That is, you bring your encryption key, and when you bring your encryption key, you can store your encryption key on AWS and use your encryption key to encrypt anything, or you can at the same time use AWS managed keys for to encrypt your secrets that you have on AWS. Now, thank you for that question. I hope I was able to answer it. Now I will go back to I will go to a new service that we also have, which is called EC2. EC2 is one of the most popular services that we have on AWS, and the reason why it's a popular service is because of the fact that for everything that you need, you will always want to, most times, not everything that you need, because we have managed services on AWS. And then when we talk about managed services, when you hear manage on AWS, manage definitely means that AWS does not want you to focus on the infrastructure. They just want you to use. They just want you to use. They just want you to use. Focus on your development. They will focus on your code. Forget about the infrastructure. We take care of it. That's what we call managed services. Now, for EC2, EC2 is basically what do you call it? An AWS compute resources, and it allows you to definitely provision secureable, or let me say secure, and also resizable compute resources on the cloud. And these EC2s, we have different types of EC2. I'm going to talk about them one after the other. And a basic way of knowing the types of EC2 that we have is when you come to the EC2 dashboard and you click on launch instance, for example. Let me say I want to launch an instance. Just scroll down here. I'm still going to launch an EC2 instance. I want to probably give you an overview before we go deep dive into compare instance type. Now, if you come here now, you will see the different types of instance type that we have in the AWS. We have T2, we have M4, we have M3, we have the the C4, if I'm very, very correct. We have C4, we have C3, we have R4, X1, and so on. It's like AWS has 470 instance type. That is to tell you that in AWS, we have instance types to cover every type of compute workload that you want to run. Now, AWS have now tried to simplify this for you. I think we're able to simplify it into basically 4 types. We have what we call general purpose instance type. General purpose instance type are basically what you use, like good choice for workloads that don't use full CPU often. So you get an example is T2. T2 is a general instance type that people can use, general purpose, Another one is M4, another one is M3 that we have. We also have what we call compute optimize. When you have, you have workloads that are actually going to make very high use of, processors, and, at the same time you want to lower your, your price, you can think about C4. If you think about AWS C4, AWS C4 instance type are, are things that allows you, when you see C means compute. So that's another thing that you can actually use to recognize the kind of instance type that you want to run. We have C4, we have C3 also. These are different types of what, compute optimized workloads. Compute optimized EC2 instance type that we have. Then we also have what we call memory optimized. Memory optimized are most times very, very good when you start running, database, for example, and you have we are considering RAM, for example. So you can consider X1, R4, R4. Sorry, I thought I was typing. Oh my God, what am I doing? Okay, R4, yeah. You have R4, R3 for your memory optimized and what's it called? Memory optimized instance type. And we also have the the accelerated computing instances. We have storage optimized when we start talking about IO. That is your, and you have resources that have very high IO and so on. Then another thing is that for every instance type, before you select, AWS gives you the privilege to be able to see the cost of the cost of any instance type that you want to select. Let me see if there's a cost option here. Okay, this is free tier eligible. Okay, now you can see the cost of your instance type for anything that you want to select on AWS. So with that, you can also get to know, how much is how much is this particular instance that you want to run going to cost, or let me say what's the cost per hour of what we call of these instances. Then when it also comes to the cost, I am giving an overview, because after the overview, then we'll do some little hands-on, and because of the time, I need to be very, very time conscious. Now, when it also comes to when it also comes to the cost on EC2 instances, we have 4 types of ways in which you can use to optimize your cost on EC2 instances, and everything is on this side. You see instances? Do you see where you have instances here? It's on this type, is on this side. The first one we call the on-demand instance type. The on-demand instance type basically means that maybe you just want to quickly provision an instance on demand. Like if you need an instance you want to use to run particular load stuffs, and this instance types do not require you to have upfront payment, for example. That's an example. So if you need an on-demand instance type, you can click on instances, and once you click on instances, you see launch instance here. Once you click on launch instance here, you can quickly provision an on-demand instance type, specify the different configurations, and you have your instance provision within few minutes. That's the first one. The second one is what we call the spot instances. You can see spot request here. A spot instance is one of the best ways of saving high amount of money on AWS EC2, Amazon EC2, and this is because of the fact that you can save about 90% of the price that you run on on-demand instance type. 90%. But when we talk about 90%, at the same time, it is very, very risky. Why do I mean by it is risky is that on spot instances should only be used for workloads that that can tolerate downtimes. For example, let me say, for example, maybe you want a simple place where I use my spot instances. For example, I use it in testing. Maybe you have an application that you just deployed and you just want to test quickly. Maybe CI/CD pipeline, just want to test and go, and after testing, you don't need that instance again. You can request for a spot instance on AWS. And applications are very, very flexible. They can stop anytime, they can start anytime, and things that you can use spot instances to run. You can also use spot instances to run some one-time jobs. You can also use spot instances to run some one-time jobs. And a basic way you can get for spot instance is just to request. Once you click on request spot instance here, you can see request port instance, you can select the capacity type, the target, and some other things that you need from AWS. And once you request, AWS, gives you that spot instance. And when AWS is going to take that spot instance, because it's a spot instance, AWS can always demand for their instance back. And don't forget that, you are reducing 90% of the cost of an on-demand what's it called it on-demand EC2 instance. So when AWS want to demand request for their instance, they give you like I think 2 minutes. Yeah, I think it's 2 minutes. They give you 2 minutes notice that, Mr. Man, we need our instance back. We need it to use. We need a customer that that's requesting for an on-demand instance. So they take back the instances from it, but they are very very good instances, and you can also use them to save money. Then the third type is what we call the reserved instances. The reserved instance. The reserved instance allows you to just save 72%, 72% of your cost compared to on-demand instances. As you can see, that's basically on the top. You can see up to 72%. And basically, reserve instance basically means you committing a particular amount to AWS, telling AWS, okay, I want this instance, I want to reserve this instance ahead. And you can reserve for 1 year or 3-year term. And another good thing about reserve instances is that you can also sell, I think, yeah, you can sell them in AWS marketplaces, and probably to get some money back. The way they go about with that, I'm not very good with selling reserve instances. So that is a good another option of what we call instance, what's it called EC2 price. That's it, Amazon EC2 price. Then the final one is what we call the dedicated hosts. Dedicated host is very, very good when you have, maybe you want your applications to run very, very close to each other, or maybe like let me talk about you want your application to be in the same data center, for example, or you want them to be on the same host. You can demand for dedicated host. And when you have a dedicated host, you can provision as many as possible instances on your dedicated host. And I also think dedicated host also allows you to save about 70% of your of your cloud of your cloud cost, as EC2 cost compared to what on-demand cost. Now, another important thing, I think I've explained, quite a few things about EC2. Another important thing is what we call security group. Let me scroll down. Security group. Yeah. Security group basically is different from NACUs. It's different from NACUs. It's different from subnet. And security group, I think they ask these questions most times in most times in interview. A security group basically just act as a firewall and is always and can always be associated with your EC2 instance. You don't attach security group to subnets. It is only attached to what EC2 instance. And basically it is used to control your inbound and outbound traffic at the instance level. Take, for example, I have an EC2 instance that is created for Cloud9. If I click on this security group now, first of all, you can see that this is the security group name. This is the security group ID. This is the VPC where the security group is attached. And if you look at the inbound, because I told you it is used to control your inbound and outbound traffic at the instance level. If you look at this, you can see that I have different inbound rules. I have inbound rules on on SSH that allows SSH communication to my instance on this particular port, on this particular port 22 coming from this source. I also have outbound rules that allows traffic from all. I don't tell people to allow to give all most times, but it's also good when you have based on different security that you have in your organization. So that is security group. So security group most times you just have to to create rules, inbound and outbound rule. So if you want to always create a new rule, for example, you can always click on the security group, edit the edit the inbound rule, add new rule. If I want to add new rule, maybe I want to allow let me say SMTP. SMTP allows you is a mail is a mail protocol. it's always work on port 22, 25, sorry, then I can tell you, okay, do I want it to come from my IP address, that is my present IP address, or I have a particular security group that I want to select. I tell people to always allow, to always use security group as what you call it, as source most times, because it's very, very good. It's very, very good. And you can always add a description. A description will always give you an information about, okay, why did I create this security group some time ago? So this is just a simple way of, adding, rules to your words, to your security group. Don't worry, we have, what do you call it, a section on this, like and hands-on on how to go about with this. I just want to give you the whole overview. Then another thing in EC2 is what we call key pair. I'm touching the most important thing that you need. A key pair basically is just, is a public key. Yeah, AWS key pair is a public key. And a public key is just generated by AWS, which
this thing in this
hello, someone please, can you mute yourself? Okay. A key pair basically is a public key that allows you to encrypt and decrypt your login to your EC2 instance. That is just what it means. And most times, a key pair allows you to log in using SSH. That's simple it. And this is something that is created by AWS when you want to launch your your EC2 instance, or you can at the same time create your own personal your own personal key pair on AWS, and this allows you to log in. And at the same time, we use key pair to also avoid password-based authentication. So most time when you see key pair is usually what SSH-based authentication to your to your EC2 instance. If you want to create a key pair, is the easiest thing to create. You can just see key pair. Let me say that's key pair. If you also notice during the last during our last class that we had on Linux Linux management, I created some key pair for you, gave you some key pairs to use to access your instances that you have on the cloud. So this is a simple one, that a simple example. So you have your key pair, you have selected the RSA, which is the key pair format, the key pair type. You can select PEM or you can set PK depending on what you want to use. PuTTY most times allows to allows PPK is just like a format of a private key type, and you select what you select create key. So once you select a create key, automatically you have that your key here, and at the same time you can see that automatically the key has been downloaded. You can see that it has been downloaded to my to my PC, and I can always use this to log in. Now you should know one thing. Now the time I created this key has, we have what we call public key, we have private key. One is going to be on your on your EC2 instance, which is it's just like you want to confirm that are you the right person that is logging in. I am giving you this. This is my this is my private key. I'm giving you am I the right person? Am I authorized to log into this this EC2 instance? I don't want to use terminologies. There's some terminologies I can use, but I don't want to use it so that it can be very, very easy to understand. So that is basically a key pair and what it does. Now we are all now going to talk about what we call IAM. IAM is Amazon Machine Image. Presently, I don't have any IAM here. And IAM is just like, what's the best way of defining an IAM?
IAM or AMI.
Sorry, thank you. AMI. Yeah, AMI is just like, let me say, it's just like a template. Just like a template that contains your, your software configuration that you want to use to launch your EC2 instance. That is just what it means. AMI, Amazon Machine Image, contains that configuration that you want to use to launch your machine. And you can create an AMI, you can create your own custom AMI. Most times we create custom AMIs, and I'm going to give you use cases when you have to create custom AMI. We are going to create a custom AMI during this session. And you can use your custom AMI to attach to maybe for auto scaling, for example. You can use custom AMI to, to provision as many resources as you want in your, in your environment. And an example of this is, take for example, you have you created an EC2 instance. In your EC2 instance, you install a particular application, you put some file, you put everything. That particular EC2, you can create an AMI from that particular EC2. And from that AMI, you can use it to launch other EC2. Just saying you are creating replicas of that same instance that you launch. Sometimes you're not creating multiple replicas in in that on your AWS EC2 console. That is, simple use cases of AMI, not IAM. Yeah, thank you. Now, let us create an EC2 instance, and let me quickly show you some of the things that actually has to do with, creating EC2 instances. Okay, so we are going to come here. We want to create an EC2 instance. We click on launch. It's a very simple thing. Okay, I think there's a question before I go there.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, please go on.
Okay, you said something about the AMI that if we are doing it, it seems you are producing like a replica of that exact the same one. So if we have, for example, that a software is installed in that particular one, now if we now use that AMI of that particular VM or instances to now create another one, will those applications that have been installed in that one be present in the one as in the other one that you
Yes,
just
yes,
created?
yes, it's going to be there. It's going to be there.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
with
you.
the configuration of the application that you have there, it's going to be there. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. It's very, very good when you are doing auto scaling in AWS. You can always use, AMI to do many of these things. So let us create a new EC2 instance. Let me just say does EC2, and here you can see Amazon AMI. That is default one. We're going to use Amazon Linux, and when you select Amazon Linux, you also it gives you like the the AMI RAM. It shows you just a few details. You can see it's a free tier. That's why I'm selecting this, and then you can also select your instance type, which I've shown you. If you want other options, you can always click for other options, like I say, compare instance type and select other instance type. And you can see, like I was telling you earlier, I said this particular EC2 instance type, which is T2 micro. If you are running on a Linux VM there, this is the price per hour. And if you are running Windows, this is the price per hour. You have this. Then if you want a key pair login, you get me? Earlier, we created a key pair login. You can also tell AWS, okay, create key pair. I don't have any key pair. Want to create a new key pair, you get me? You can tell AWS to do that, or you can at the same time select existing key pairs that you have. We created daas key pair earlier, so you can select existing key pair, which is like daas key pair that we created earlier. And this is definitely going to be provisioned in my in my network. That is my VPC that I've created. We are going to treat VPCs later. And you can tell it, okay, create a new security group for this for this instance, or select, that is, add add it to existing security groups that have been created. I'm going to create a new one because I just wanted to I can delete everything that I've done later. Then you can see in that security group, automatically it allows SSH connection from anywhere. This is just just to show you a way it's been done. It's not like as if you should always give permission to traffic from 0.0.0.0. Then at the same time, we are going to select a volume type, an EBS volume type. I'm going to talk about EBS volume type. I'm going to talk about the types of EBS volume types in the next session, but I want you to know what GP means. GP means general purpose. We have okay, I don't want to go deep now. This is just select GP, just GP2, general purpose 2, and I think that is all. Then you can put key tags if you want to probably this is Active Directory if you want to join it to an AD, that is the moment you are creating your EC2 instances or not. So I think this is the basic configuration of creating an EC2, and then you can click on launch. The moment you click on launch, you give it some time, and yeah, your EC2 instance is here. This is your EC2 instance. Yes, this is it. Now, there are some things that you need to understand when also come to EC2 instances. There's what we call, this is just, this is like a description. If I select this EC2 instance, you can see the description. Let me close this, sorry, so that the screen can come down a little. Let me take this up a little. Okay, you can see here that this is my instance ID. Instance ID is just a unique number that AWS gives your EC2 instances. So take for example, if you're having a problem with your instance or anything like that, when you raise a case to AWS, they ask for your VPC, your what do you call it, a lot of information, and they ask for this instance ID. You give this instance ID to AWS, and they can probably help you to check what's wrong, or is it a problem from their end, and another thing like that. Then another thing that is important, you can see public IP here. The reason why we are having public IP here is because of the fact that an elastic IP has been attached to this instance. What is an elastic IP? An elastic IP basically is what allows these your EC2 instances to communicate with the internet, or let me say allows access from the internet also to your, what do you call it, to your EC2 instance. And this public IP at the same time always allows you to also generate, what do you call it, DNS. That is DNS for your, what do you call it, for your what do you call it, for your EC2 instance. You can see this is the public IP DNS. This is just like, and this is the private IP. That is, if you want to access this EC2 instance within your subnet, please. I'm going to show you the subnet it is attached to. Within that subnet, you can also access it with this what? With this IP and SSH into it. Then, so if I'm going to access this EC2 instance now, I'm going to use what's called the public IP, because I am not working from, I'm not connecting from any EC2 instance in that subnet. I am doing it from outside, which is my own PC, which is outside, which is on the internet. I'm going to connect with it on this port 22. And what other thing do I want to show you? This is the assigned IP address, that is the public IP. And this is the subnet that I showed you. This is the AMI ID, the AMI that we attached to, which is Amazon Linux 2. And let me come here also. You can also have an information about the security group that was created. You can see EC2 Wizard Launch Wizard 2, that's it. And you can see the rules. You can see that there is no this is the inbound rule, and you can see the outbound rule that we have there. Then also for the networking, I've shown you the VPC. I've also shown you some of these things in these places. And for the storage also, you can see a storage that is assigned. You can see this is the volume name. That is this is the root device name. This is the what you call the volume ID. I'm going to talk about volume later. And this is the size of the, what is it called, of the volume that is attached. This is 8 gigabytes that's attached to your, what is it called it, GB bytes, not gigabyte, GB bytes that is attached to your, what is it called it, to your EC2 instance. Now you can see encryption is not enabled here. I'm going to show you about that one in the next what's called it, in next what's it called it, in the next topic, or let me say next services that we're going to talk about. That. Then another thing that you can see here is that the moment I created my EC2 instance, there's what we call states here. EC2 instance state basically allows you to know, okay, the current state of your, what's it called, EC2 instance. The moment I created it, you can see it was in pending state before, right? That was telling that the instance is still being provisioned. And after some time, the state changed to what? To running. Another thing you can also use to put your instance in different states is where we come here and select, do you want to stop your instance? Do you want to reboot your instance? Do you want to hibernate your instance? Do you also what? To also terminate your instance. These are also different states in which you can put your EC2 instance on what you call it, on AWS. Then another thing that you can also do for your EC2 instance, you can also create what we call it what do you call it? You can also create some, what do you call it, some security for your EC2 instance. What do I mean by security? A good security is what we call change termination protection. Change termination protection basically means that if you click on terminate, if you click on protect termination, that is to tell you that you cannot automatically or accidentally, sorry, you cannot accidentally terminate that EC2 instance. That is a good way of creating what you call it, protection for your EC2 instance. You can also see some other protection, change stop protection. You can also change the behavior of shutdown and also some other things. Now, this is one. Another thing I also want to tell you is what we call user data. User data, presently you can see here that when I launched this my EC2 instance, it just came up. There was nothing. It just came up as an EC2 instance. Take for example, I want a situation whereby the moment I launch my, what is it called it, my EC2 instance, I want my EC2 instance to automatically, install Apache, that is HTTPD. I can edit, that is, I can probably put in a user data. There's no user data here presently now. I can probably attach a user data, that is yum install httpd to my EC2 instance, and that moment that EC2 instance starts up, after it starts up, automatically, you have httpd, that's Apache, that is installed on that EC2 instance. That's a very, very good, what's it called? A very, very good use case of what we call it, of user data. That is very, that's one. Then another thing I also want to show you is, I was on action earlier, right? Okay. Another thing I also want to show you here is, okay, you can also attach tags. Tags, you can actually attach tags to your EC2 instance. Tags just allows you to, to manage the cost, and, to be able to group your EC2 instances based on application level, or based on the region where they are running, or when I mean by region, like it's the kind of market. Take, for example, I work in an organization that, we work for almost all regions in the world. I have application that is in LATAM, I have application that is EMEA, I have application that is in, APAC region. So I have tags. I have tags for application in the Paris market. I have a particular tags for application in, what do you call it, in India market, Bangalore. I have tags for them. So with that, I can, if I have the same tags for all my resources that is running in Paris market, for example, with that, I can estimate, okay, what's the cost of running this particular application on the cloud. So that's a very good use of what? Of tags. Now, I was telling you earlier that we can create, what's it called? We can create image, we can create what's it called? We can create AMI, not IAM, AMI from this EC2 instance. Take, for example, if I have installed HTTPD on my EC2 instance earlier, at least if I have installed, let me say I log in, let us log in, please. Okay, let me try and open another console. I want to try and log into this EC2 instance for you, so that, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? I am trying to open a console. Can you see my screen? Can you see what I'm doing? Can you see mobile XTEM? Please let me know if you can see it. Hello.
I cannot see it from my end.
Okay, maybe I'm not sharing.
I cannot see it.
Okay, just a minute. I'll try and share now. Just a minute. I'll share again. Okay. Sorry. Close. Let me share. I'm trying to look for the option to share again. Okay, stop sharing. Share again. I want to log into that EC2 instance and show you some things. Okay, can you see mobile XTEM now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I want to log into that my EC2 instance that I've just created now. I'm going to pick the IP address from AWS console. This is the private IP address. I'm going to pick that, and boom. The username should always be what do you call it? Just a minute. Close. I'm going back to AWS EC2 instance to be able to pick all the details that I need. EC2 user is the username, and okay, EC2 user is the username, and now I will just attach my, what's it called, my private key that was downloaded on AWS. I'm going to attach the private key now to it. You can remember the private key name was I think daas key, right? If you remember, daas key, daas key. So here we go. Now we are into the EC2 instance. Can you see? So let me just quickly run sudo yum updates. I want to show you something. Yum updates. Okay. Yes. I'm trying to update the EC2 instance. Sorry.
So sorry, that YAM update, what are you updating? Is it the OS?
No, I'm updating the packages, all the existing packages.
Okay, when you said AMI, so AMI, is it just the OS image or it also involves runtime?
AMI involves the operating system, the applications that you install on it. That's what I want to show you.
Okay.
This is a system now. It does not have what's it called? It does not have HTTPD. So I want to install Apache on this system now. And once I install Apache on this system now, I will now create an AMI from this Linux machine that is this EC2 instance and use it to create another one and confirm if it's going to be there or not. Do you get me? So that's what I want to do. So now I'm going to go on yum install HTTPD. This is it. And okay, sorry, sudo yum install HTTPD. You can see HTTPD is about to be installed, successfully installed. This is it now. So we have HTTPD installed. So we don't have any problem now. You can always go to systemctl start HTTPD. What is it again? Okay, let us see the, okay, does not have any service file. That's not any problem though. We have to provide blah, blah, blah. Okay, don't let me do this now. Let me just leave this. Now I have installed HTTPD. This HTTPD that I've installed now, I'm going to create what's it called an AMI from this server and check if this is going to be there. Now let us go back to our C2 console. Now let me stop sharing now and share a new screen again. Okay. Where's my AWS EC2 instance? Okay. Okay. So now I have my EC2 instance here now. This is the name of the EC2 instance. It's presently running. That's EC2 instance. From this that's EC2 instance, I want to create an AMI. So I have to just come to the actions here, come to what's it called, image, and create image. You can see, yeah, create image. There's another thing that's also called template. There's also called launch template. Let me quickly explain launch template for you. Now, launch templates, if this is launch template here, you can also see option to create templates from instance. Launch template is also a good one that you can also use when you want to also work. Probably you want to have a unique way of what's it called, creating instances in your environment. When you click on create launch template, it's just like the same way of creating an EC2 instance. And this time you can just specify a lot of things. And you can always use that template, to create multiple versions of any instances that you want. So a launch template is just like the way we created an EC2 instance. You can see the name, put the AMI, put the key pair, put everything that we did earlier. It's just the same thing. You get me? So now let us go back to our EC2 instance now that I was showing you before. EC2 running. Yeah, this is what is running. And here we are. And action, I'm going to create an AMI from AMI. Yes, not AMI. Yeah, create AMI from this. That's create image. Let me now give it a name. That's AMI. Just leave the description. Just leave this and delete on termination. Good. Nothing specific. You can see the volume there is already. So come here, create. I have just created an AMI. So if I come to my AMI here now, you will see that I have this AMI. You can see it's pending. So this is my AMI. Now I can use this AMI to create another EC2 instance. This same AMI, I can use it to create another EC2 instance. And by the time we check this new EC2 instance, we will be able to confirm that this new EC2 instance now has what? Now has what's it called? Now has Apache, that's HTTPD. Now has it installed. Now let's go and confirm that. Now come here. Now we want to create a new EC2 instance. Now I don't know. Let me restart this. Okay, select now. You see launch instance from AMI. Did you see this? If I click on launch instance from AMI, automatically it will load the AMI. Just leave it. It will load. You see here, it selects it as what? That's AMI. Before we had option to select maybe what do you call it? We had the option to select what do you call it? We had the option to select Amazon EC2, Ubuntu, any other thing. Now Let us now give it a name, daas from AMI, and just leave this as before. Let's use the same key pair that we used before. That's key, and yeah, we can use the same what's it called, security group. You remember the name of the security group? Launch user 2. Yeah, this is the security group. You leave this as existing, then we launch an instance. Boom. Why it says failed, initialization failed. Okay, the AMI is in pending state. Sorry, I didn't let it leave. So we have to go back and let it finish from pending state, because if not, we cannot use the AMI. Just a minute. Oh my God. Okay, so basically it's just trying to copy everything that you have, like it's the OS. We are still going to go back to this once it's finished, leaves the pending state. It's just going to copy everything that you have. Then there's an advice that people tell people when you are creating AMI. I guess that's one of the challenges that we're facing. It's always advisable that you shut down your instance, because it's basically going to copy all the software, all the updates that we have. It's going to try to copy them and use that to create a new, a new template. So it's usually advisable that you shut down you shut down your EC2 instance that you're trying to create AMI from. It's very, very advisable. Let me log out from this guy. Okay, it's already logged out already. And yeah, we'll come back to that once it leaves the pending state, and yes, we can pick on that. Now, while we are waiting for that, let me shut this down so that it can be fast. Shut down just instance states. Stop instance. Okay. Now, while we are waiting on that, another important thing here is what we call volumes. In AWS, EC2 instance volumes are called EBS. Now, AWS different, call it storage types. We have X3, we have EFS, we have EBS, and EBS is elastic block storage. This is usually attached to what instances, EC2 instances. We have EFX that is attached to what Linux instances, is elastic file system. It's just like more having like a network drive that you want to attach to what different systems. Now, for EBS, I need to explain some things when it comes to elastic, elastic block storage for you. And in EBS is okay. Let me go to volumes. You can see volumes here. Okay. Now, these are the different types of volumes that I have. For volume, if you want to create a new volume on AWS, basically a simple command like create volume. Like so I say a simple click on create volumes will allow you to create a volume. You can create an existing volume and attach that volume to your to a new to a new EC2 instance. That is, what I mean is that there can only be one-to-one mapping between a volume and an EC2 instance. You cannot attach one volume to two EC2 instance. If you want to do that, you need to use what we call EFS. For EBS, you can only have one-to-one mapping. Please take note of that. Now, when it comes to volume, like I said, you can always create a volume, and EBS volume has different functions, like different functionalities. First of all, you have high performance volume. We have different types of volumes that we're going to see here. You can see GP, general purpose, just like the way we have, compute optimized EC2 instance, the way we have storage optimized, the way we have general purpose. We have the same thing here. We have IOPS, we have code storages, we have every of these things, we have them here. Now, you can also, that's number one. Another thing is that when it comes to volume also, it is possible for you to encrypt volumes. Encrypting volumes is just like, let me say, you are trying to keep what is in that volume, you are trying to keep it safe. And volume encryption is very, very good. In fact, it's one of the good things that companies that deals with what PCI DSS, they do a lot. Volume encryption for EC2 instances, it's a very simple one. All you just have to do is just attach an encryption key to your volume, and you are good to go. Don't worry, I will show you the options of what we call volume on how to encrypt volume here. Then another thing is that EBS volumes are elastic. That's what we call elastic. Elasticity means what? Ability to what? To increase something, that is to change the size. So you can change the size of an EBS volume anytime. And once you change the size of, let me say you change a particular size now, I think AWS give you like maybe 6 hours after the recent change before you can change the size again. That is to increase the size of that, what's it called, EBS volume. Then another thing that you need to know is that your volumes also is always within what's it called, is always within your what's it called, your region. It's always within your region. And you cannot copy one volume from one region to another region. Take, for example, an AMI. You can take one AMI from one region to another region. That is not a big deal. But for volumes, you cannot copy one volume from one region to another region. If you want to probably take a volume out of a region, or let me say out of an availability zone, what you have to do is you have to create a snapshot of that volume, and you have to restore that snapshot in, let me say, in another availability zone. Then another thing for volume is that volume is very, very good when you're, when you're running with, let me say, migration, disaster recovery, all these snapshots, come very, very handy. So let us create a volume. I'm going to select a volume here now. I'm going to just create a 4 gig, 3 gigabyte, what's called a volume. And this is the IOPS because of the type of what's it called, the type of purpose that the type of what's called volume time that I'm using. This is it. And this is the availability zone where I have what's it called, where I have my volume. You can see something here now. You can see encryption. Now, the moment I click on encrypt volume, it should give me the option to select an encryption key. An encryption key, basically, like I told you, allows you to what, to encrypt or keep safe what is inside that volume. That is what it means. That's just what an encryption key is. So when you select the encryption key, the encryption option, I'm not going to encrypt this, please. But when you select the encryption option, you can encrypt your volume and give permission to what you call it, to that that encryption key. So that is just the encryption option, and you can at the same time just once this is very simple, then just create the volume. Boom. Now you can see that my volume has been created with this ID. So how do I know it? This is OB what? OB, this is my volume. Now, if you look at these volumes now, compared to the other volumes that are here, you will see an option here that is called attached instance. Did you see? Attached instance basically means that that volume at that moment is not attached to any instance. It's not attached to any EC2 instance. It's not attached to any EC2 instance. So if I want to attach to it, maybe I want to give it like an additional, what's it called? I can probably select, okay, attach this volume to another EC2 instance, then try to try to create try to configure the volume inside the EC2 instance. You can also come here to to rename your your daas the volume. You can just give it a name, daas volume. And that is just a brief about EC2 volume types. And like I told you, you can change the volume size. Take, for example, we created a volume for a particular EC2 instance recently. I think created for, I don't know which one was recently created. We created for okay, let's group based on creation dates. Okay, we created this recently. This is today. Okay, this is today. Created this earlier. We created this earlier for a particular EC2 instance, which was our daas EC2. This is daas EC2. I can decide to change the size of this volume. That's the elasticity about volume. So you can just click on the volume here. Once you click on the volume here now, you can come to action now. You can edit volume. When you want to edit volume, you can select, okay, I want it to now be 10 gig. No more, no more 8 gig and modify. Once you modify it, select it to acknowledge it, and you can see that it has been increased to 10 gig. You can see volume has been modified. Then the next thing is that you now have to go to your EC2 instance, expand the file system, do the normal volume management, that is volume configuration on an EC2 instance. I think that is that for volumes on the EC2 instance. Let me quickly go back and check my AMI.
Okay, question please.
Okay, go on, please. Okay, my AMI is available. Okay.
Is it a must to attach volume? Is there like a default volume? So I'm assuming the volume is like the hard disk.
Okay, Thank
Like
you.
the system
Thank
will
you.
run on.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good question. Now, in AWS, there's what we call instance store, and there's what we call normal ABS volume. Instance store basically is, let me say, it's more like the root volume that comes with your, what's it called, that comes with your EC2 instance when you're provisioning it. If you want to add more instances, you can add what's it called, you can add more volumes to an EC2 instance. Now, instance store, the difference between EBS and the instance store is that the moment your instance is probably shut down, and put it that way, the moment you shut down that instance, the, what's it call it, the files in that instance is being lost. In that particular instance volume store, that instance store is lost. But if it was a normal EBS volume, you will still have that file there. I hope you get me. So that is just like, the difference. And, we tell people most times don't use instance store. We tell them don't use instance store. Now I want to go back to my AMI. I can see that my AMI is now available. Now the state has left pending. It's now available. Now I want to launch an EC2 instance for my AMI now. I was doing before that didn't go. What do you call it? That's from AMI, right? I selected this, leave this as default. Let us select that key pair and select an existing, or does it call it, an existing, sorry, that's this, sorry. There's another thing that you can have, as you can have many security groups attached to your EC2 instance. It's very, very possible to have many security groups. So I'm going to launch now. Let's see. So successful. You can see I have just successfully launched an instance from my, what do you call it, from my AMI. Now let us look at that instance. Let that instance be in pending state. Let us try and log into that instance and confirm that we have our Apache installed. So once this instance leaves pending state, we will check it and confirm that our Apache is installed. We give it some time. Any other questions while we are waiting for this? I think time is running fast.
I have a question. It's like taking us back a bit. So
Come again, please.
I have a question, though it's like taking us back a bit. So with regard to I would love that your keeper, you downloaded it to your local machine.
The key pair, yes, sure. It's a private key. So the public key will be saved in the EC2 instance.
Okay, can you repeat that process where you downloaded it to your local machine and how you connect?
It's automatically downloaded. Anytime you create a key pair, it's advisable that it's automatically downloaded. You cannot download the private key again. Go back here now. Let me go back here. Let me show you something. For example, you can see I'm going to come back to my instance. Let me go to key pair. These are key pairs that have been created already. You can see this key pair. This is daas key pair now. If I want to create an action now, you can see that I cannot download it again. You can see I can only delete it or import a new key pair. That's the only thing I can only do. I cannot download it again. So it's like one-time download and you have to download it. That's just the way it works.
So when you downloaded it, you will tell your download on your machine.
Come again? I did what?
When you created it just download automatically on your.
Yes, when you create it, automatically downloads on your system.
Okay.
Yes.
Then when you wanted to connect your mobile extender, you selected it. You can just repeat that stage.
Yeah, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to repeat the stage now because I have just created a new EC2 instance and we have to confirm. So we'll do it together. Okay. Now, okay.
Question,
Another
please.
question.
So,
okay.
So that key pair now that you downloaded, assuming I also want to access this Linux server you created from my own system, can you share the key pair you downloaded to me, or will I need to create a key pair? Will you have to create a key pair for me that I will download?
The reason why I'm creating a key pair is because I'm using SSH-based authentication. You get me? If, for example, if the EC2 instance was added to an Active Directory, all you just have to use is just to use your login details to the AD to log into the EC2 instance. You get me? So it's because of this SSH base. So because of the SSH base, you have to probably, I can create another key pair for you to be able to, for you to be able to access that instance. So that's the way it works.
But if you create that key pair now, it will still download on your system.
If I create a new one.
If you are the
Yeah,
one
sure,
creating
sure.
it,
If you download on my system, I can share it. It's just like a file. I can share it.
oh, meaning you can still share your first one you created with me.
Yes, sure,
Okay.
sure. I can do that. Is that fine?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for that. Another question, I want to test my, my EC2 instance now. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my EC2 instance that was created earlier. And this is daas from AMI. You remember this? So let us try and connect to this EC2 instance now. And what is the IP? So I'm going to open my mobile XTEM now. I'm going to share a new screen again. Sorry. Stop sharing mobile XTEM. Sorry. Share mobile XTEM. Okay, can you see mobile XTEM now? Okay, so let's go. SSH. So I'm going to pick the instance IP address now. Public IP address, I'm going to put that. And I put that here. And the username also is EC2 user, right? EC2-user. And now I come to advanced, select my private key, which is what's it called, which is the key. That's key, and connect. Here we go. You see? Now, this EC2 instance is here now. What I want to do, I want to confirm if my Apache, like my HTTP, have been installed. Let us do yum list installed, then you grep for HTTPD. You see that it has been installed. Did you see that?
Yeah, I'll see it.
Yes. So if I also had created a file in that system and came back here and, tried to tell it that, okay, yes, I've installed this. I want you to, I've already, what's it called? I've already created an AMI from this. Everything that you have there will come here. Please try and note that. So this is just to test for you AMI. And I've also shown you launch templates also. They are very, very good things that you can also use. So it's like a template that you can also always use to create what more EC2 instances. So let us go back. I was here before. I was here. Okay, good. Now, another thing I want to talk about is snapshots. Snapshots. Okay. Now, if you notice something, a new snapshot was, okay, you did not notice. Okay, I'm going to say something now. A new snapshot, when I was creating my, when I was creating my AMI, a new snapshot was created just for me to be able to create my AMI. That is, it's taking the state of that instance at a particular time to create that AMI, just like having a storage. You can see the description here. It says created by create image for the particular instance. Now, what a snapshot basically allows you to do is just for you to, let me say, EBS snapshots gives you the ability to have a point in time, state of your volumes. That's just the EBS snapshot. And your snapshots are usually saved on X3. If I go to my X3, you will see my snapshot there. Another thing about EBS snapshots is that they are incremental. What I mean by incremental is that if, for example, I have like 100 gig of data on this, on my, for that, my 100 gig of data was taken as the first snapshot. And after some time, I took another snapshot of that same instance, and I had probably had like 5 more gig of data change. The subsequent snapshots will only be what? Additional 5 gig of data. That means I will only be billed for the changes that are made. That is what you need to do. Then another thing is that we have types of snapshot storage types, just like the way we have EBM, S3 types. We have standard, we have, archive. This is, this is standard. This is the type now. You can see the storage tier is a standard. I can always come here and change the storage type here. Where do I used to change it? Sorry, did I select this? Okay, storage tier, standard. There's a way I used to change it. I don't know. I can't remember. Okay, archive snapshots. This is it, archive snapshots. So the moment I click on archive snapshots, it will change from standard to what? To archive type. Now, why do you need snapshots? You need snapshots probably if your organization have policies of probably taking snapshots on regular basis. With that, we can always use a lifecycle manager. This is a lifecycle manager by your left here. Lifecycle manager, you can tell your lifecycle manager, okay, every month create a snapshot of this EC2 instance, then keep it, and after some time, probably you set a retention period, like after 6 months or after 1 year, delete snapshots. You get me? Based on your, what's it called, your definition or the definition I give it. That's one. Then another thing is that snapshot also, you can also use snapshot to have like a copy of that instance before you make some configuration changes. Maybe you are afraid that, okay, if I do this now, if I do something now, it will spoil or something will scatter or anything like that, you can always have a snapshot for that. That's another another thing that you can also do for snapshot. And like I said, also you can use your snapshot to copy, what you call it, to copy EBS from one place to another. Now, when you want to create a snapshot, we have instance snapshot and volume snapshots. What's an instance snapshot? Instance snapshot just basically mean that if you have in a system, in an analysis system, you have like 3 to 4 EBS volumes attached to it. When you select instance snapshot, it takes a snapshot of everything, all the volumes in that system. That is instance snapshot. But when you set volume snapshot, it only takes the snapshot of a specific volume that you have in that system. And when you have a snapshot that you have created and you want to probably, that was very, very good, like for data recovery, like I used to say, and you want to probably create a new volume from that snapshot, you can at the same time increase you can at the same time increase volume times when you want to create new volumes from that snapshot. Now let us create a snapshot. Now I'm not going to finish the process. I'm just going to show you. It's very, very easy, like really, really easy. Create snapshot. You can see the option to create snapshots here. And yeah, this was what I was explaining before. Volume snapshot, instance snapshot. What does it tell you? It said volumes allows you to create snapshots from a specific volume, and instance allows you to create multiple volume snapshots. So if I selected this, it will take the whole instance, all the volumes in that instance. But I can select this, if I can select a particular volume, you can see all the volumes I have here. I can select, I just want a particular snapshot of this instance, put a description and create snapshots. Very easy, no stress, no qualm. So that is just, for snapshot. I don't think this should be difficult, or if there's any problem in this. And one thing is that when you create a snapshot and you want to probably attach volume or mount volume, like I told you earlier, you need to remember some Linux command on how to mount volume, on how to create partition, create new sites. I think we've discussed that, on how to resize, another thing like that. Now, time is almost running, and I will just probably branch some things. Like, when I take you, I always teach you how to fish. I don't give you the fish. Many of these things you will have forgotten. Sometimes you need to reference some things. And AWS documentation is one of the best places that you can always go if you want to learn something. Let us do AWS documentation. This is a Google. If you want to learn anything new, this is AWS documentation. They have lots of documentation for all their services that they run, all their services. So you can always go to documentation. Let me click on AWS EC2. You can create EC2. You can see different guides, different references for EC2 auto scaling and some other things. Okay, I'm supposed to take auto scaling. Okay, we can do that later. You can always come here. That is number one. Another place that you can also go is AWS Skill Builder. Skill Builder on AWS is a self-paced digital training platform on AWS. On Skill Builder, you can learn anything. Like when I mean anything. And they do a demonstration, they do an overview. After signing in, they do an overview and show you how you can do some configuration, resources deployment, or services deployment on AWS. Take, for example, let me say I'm interested in auto scaling, for example. Okay, this is one, you see, introduction to auto scaling. So when I click on this, it tells me to enroll. You can see it in different language. It says, okay, you're going to have a demonstration on how to use these services and so on and so forth. That is AWS Skill Builder. That's the second one. Then the third one that's also very important is what we call AWS Reposts. AWS Reposts. AWS Reposts is a platform whereby you can share, post questions and you get technical guidance and people will respond. I am a very good person on the post. I used to comment a lot, answer people. It's a place where you want to learn. It's the best place to learn. I tell people, you can see people, you can see this particular person. I said, like, okay, how does upstream, disconnect, timeout states affect my application? You can see people views. Is there an answer? The person provide an answer. You see this person now, this person was working on EC2 instance. It said it deleted the library ssl.o and it cannot SSH into the EC2 instance. Somebody is going to, when you click on it, you can see a full details of the, of the problem. I deleted this, which is pseudo dependent and causing me not to be able to log into my EC2 instance using SSH. How can I recover from this situation? Somebody has just given him a good solution to that, and the person just tell him that stop the broken instance, boot up a new instance, attach a new volume from the broken instance, that is volume restore. That's what it's doing now. That is mount the volume on the OS level, then reinstall your missing library, blah, 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 detach the volume from the new instance, then you're good to go, boot up your instances. So Repost is a very, very good place. It's a very, very good place to learn a lot of things. You see questions. I go here most of the time. If I'm convinced about anything, I can always come to AWS Repost. I get answers, I get views, and so on. Then finally, we have a platform that is usually built by, not owned by AWS, but a place that AWS has created for people to build, let me say, learning consoles. I tell my students to always go there when they want to learn new things that I'm not available, and you are guided. That's what we call AWS Workshop. AWS Workshop. On AWS Workshop, it's like you can see AWS Workshop is created by teams on AWS, Amazon, on experts, just to create an environment for you to do a lot of things. So this has been designed and you can learn anything. If this is ECS basics, they give you guide by guide. Like I can create a workshop and give access like a direction or a link to, to be able to, to be able to have that workshop here. You can see different services that we have: AWS Cloud Trail, AWS Game, AWS, a lot of things, like a lot. If I click on AWS Cloud Trail now, it gives me, okay, AWS monitoring, Cloud Trail monitoring with Amazon CloudWatch. When I click on it, it directs you to the link of the owner itself. You can see it has left the place. You can see this is the link of the owner. And when you click on the link of the owner, it gives you a guide step by step on what to do. What's the first thing you select? What's the second thing you select? It's just like teaching you something that you don't know. So this is going to be step-by-step guide on how to go on with anything. So I tell people to always go up to AWS Workshop also, because it's a very, very good one. Then the third thing is just, the final thing is just random internet search. Random internet search helps you also when you're having problems with, some of these things. Then finally, I am going to end it with what we call AWS CLI, because I don't want to come back to this place. AWS CLI, remember when I was creating my user earlier, the user that I created, I did not give the user programmatic access. Programmatic access allows you to be able to use what? CLI, that is command. To everything I'm doing on the console, I can do it programmatically. For people that are DevOps engineer, you can always provision instances programmatically using AWS CLI. And you can access AWS CLI right on your own system, or you access AWS CLI from from AWS console. If you want to access AWS CLI, that particular user needs what we call AWS secret and access key. Every user has it. Let me go back to my AMI, AMI, not IAM. No, IAM. Thank you. IAM. This is IAM, identity, and access, identity and access management. If you go back to the user that I created earlier, dash user, for dash user, you can see user here. This is dash user. This particular user will always have access key. So if I come to security credentials, you can see access key. So if I create an access key, I'm not going to create one now. Once I create this access key, you can see use access key to what? To make programmatic calls to AWS from the CLI, or tools for PowerShell, AWS SDK, direct API calls. These are very, very, use cases of what? Access key. And you can also do the same thing on your console. When you go to your console on AWS console, you can use your CLI on your AWS console. This is the option to use AWS CLI. You can see Cloud Shell. They call it Cloud Shell. That is AWS CLI on the console. Cloud Shell. When you click on Cloud Shell, it loads a background for you, and you can do anything. Let us do a simple one, for example. Now, what is the syntax of AWS CLI? Always start with AWS. You get me? And okay, let me make it very easy for you. You can always use AWS help. AWS help will give you everything that you want, like a guide on how to use it. If I run AWS help now, it tells me that what if you want to do anything, use AWS CLI command. It gives you the different options that you have. This is paginate. This is just like the way you have the man page for what is it called, for man page for Linux. That's the same thing you have here. So look at the different services. Now, let me now say I don't know how I want to list my EC2 instances that I have. Let me clear my screen. And I want to use AWS CLI to list all my EC2 instances. I can come to AWS CLI, EC2. I don't know how to use it. Let me just click on help again. It's now give me a deep dive again on the different options that I can use with what? AWS CLI. That is, the syntax is AWS followed by the resources. You get me, that particular resource that you want to, or that particular service that you want to use. Then you can then go to what the other commands. Let me now see. You can see different EC2 commands. Associate instance, associate IP address, associate address, bundles. You can see create snapshots, copy snapshots. These are different things, like a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot. You can see describe instance. You can use it to describe it. You can use it to what you call it, to at the same time was sorry, so at the same time what does it call it, attach instance to security group to instances. You can see a lot. So the same way you are using it here now, you can also use the same thing for other services, not just for what does it call it, not just for AWS EC2, but you can also use it for ACM. You can use it for what is it called, you can use it for security management and lots of things like that. So that is it. Then you can also come to the internet here, just do AWS CLI documentation, docs. If you are finding it difficult to go here, you have AWS command line documentation here, just like the way you have it there. You can have it here, or you can then come here, come and reference any user guide, anything you want to do, blah blah blah. You can come here and come and do that, or you can also come to Google, like say AWS EC2 CLI. You can see here now, you can see the documentation. You can see AWS EC2, the same thing that you are seeing on this place. All this thing that you are seeing here is what you have here. Everything that you have here is what you have there. So you can use this for a lot of things. You can use it to create a key pair. You can use it to do as many things as what you call it, as you like. So I think that will be where I will be, I'll be ending today's, today's class. And I don't know if there's any question before.
Yeah, one more question, please.
Okay.
Yeah, concerning that AMI. So are there like customized AMI for depending on the application you want to deploy to the EC2 instance? Say, for example, you are deploying a main stack application, MongoDB, Node.js, and Angular. So is there like a customized instance that has the necessary runtime that you need to install?
Now, if you are talking about that now, this is like a stack, Abi, and that your stack now, you can have them on different EC2 instances. You get me? You can also use different. You're talking about you're talking about database now. You can have them on AWS your database. You can have them on AWS RDS. Now, let us say that got a new cloud learner, you don't know anything, like you don't know anything. You want to run everything that you have, you want to run everything on just one EC2 instance. You have installed your database, you installed it on your server, your web server, you installed it. It's not a good, it's not a good practice though. You have everything installed. After you have installed it and you are sure, you can create an image from that instance, and you can use that to you can replicate that. You can use that to create replicas of that same instance elsewhere. Did I answer your question?
Okay,
Yes.
okay, it's clear now.
Thank
It's
you.
clear now. Thanks.
So, any other question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, please go on.
I would like you to throw more light on that IAM rules and users. I'm finding it a little bit confusing. The users and the role.
Okay, user is an individual. You get me? Let me actually make it very, very easy for you. User, like, okay, let me say, my name is Nurudeen. You all know that my name is Nurudeen, right? Hello.
I can hear you.
Hello.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, user is like me, myself. You get me? But as a user, you get me now, I can do what's it called? I can do a lot of things. But user is like, okay, okay, the best way. Okay, user is like you want to permit somebody from you want to permit external access to your AWS resources. External. That is somebody from outside to your AWS resources. That's user. But a role is internal use. Like, for example, it's two instances communicating with one another. You get me now? There's a different communication between Lambda, CloudWatch, and SNS. You can create rules. That's for internal users. It's within what's it called? Within the AWS console itself. That's a use case of what's it called? A use case of roles. You can also use IAM rule, like I told you saying earlier, that take for example, you want EC2 instance to be able to read secrets from secret management. You can create a role for that. So that is just a simple example of that. Do you get that? And I told you that if you are in an organization, your organization will definitely have your identity provider attached to your, what is it called it, to your AWS account. So most times, if you go to an organization, if you go to log into your organization AWS console, you will not find users, but you might just find one, or maybe like the main owner of the account or anything like that. Every other person have access from, what is it called, from the Active Directory. And on the Active Directory level, you'll have but give some, what is it called, some limitations or some restrictions as necessary. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Okay.
So can I say something in regards to that role and users?
Yes, please go on. Please go on.
What I'm thinking in mind for role and user is, okay, for example, let's say role now. Roles have let's say, in the bank sector now, we have the compliance, we have the HR, we have like all those are roles, right? Now for a user now, maybe a user is coming to this organization now, they can assign a role of HR compliance to it. That's for a particular user. Why another user, they can also apply maybe security or just HR alone. You understand? So for user
Yes.
now, for a user,
now, okay, I think you're already digressing a bit, because that time you're not talking about policy. We attach policies. Policy is what you're talking about. You can remember when I created a user, I attached a policy to that user. You get me? User and roles are very, very similar. Like, they are very, very similar. And a better way to explain it for somebody is just to talk about, okay, external access, internal access. You get me? And most times when you are using your Active Directory, like you have there will be a federated user that will be allowed to be able to connect between your AWS and your identity provider. You get me? So if you're talking about that, you're talking about policies, because like I was showing you earlier, I showed you different policies. I showed you admin access policy. I showed everything. And you can also have a policy attached to a role. You can have a policy attached to a user also.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. So you can always read out on the internet, when do you need to create a user? When do you need to create a role? I think there should definitely be, options, or let me say, there will definitely be questions on them. Sorry, articles on this on the internet. So any other question again?
Yeah.
I just posted a question on the chat, sir.
Okay.
He said, I created an IAM user with permission to administrative access, but when creating S3 buckets, it says, I do not have such privilege. What do I need to do? Now, good. Now, if you created a user, You want the user to be able to access you want the user to have permission to what you call it, to create S3 bucket. Then you need to go and look at the policy that's attached to that user. Is that policy, is it custom defined? Did you give it all X3 permissions that is required for that particular user? You can go and check that. Did you get that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Okay, please go on.
Still with regard to key pair. Now,
Okay.
this for instance, when I'm deploying my VM, so there was a key that was created for me that I created, which was saved. Then subsequently, I want to create a new key. Can I still use that new key to remote into that VM, or I must use the first one I will create during the?
No, I don't, if I get your question very well, you have a key, you created a key when launching an EC2 instance, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now you now want to create another key again for that same instance, right?
Yes.
Now, basically on AWS will only give you one key, like at the first launch of your instance. However, you can attach a key is just, let me just say, it's just a terminology that AWS is calling. A key pair is a terminology that AWS is calling it on their own end. However, you can create another key on your own end by yourself using the normal SSH keygen command. When you run this command, you get me, you specify the the type of key, specify the key name. When you run it on any system, only in Linux system, it gives you two outputs. It gives you a private key and gives you a public key. Now, you copy that public key. Your public key is always ending with .pub. That's the normal way to identify a public key. You copy that public key, you then log into you then log into your EC2 instance that you created initially. Copy that public key into the the .ssh folder. And there's what we call is it privilege that we call them, or we call them allowed? There's a particular name, maybe allowed or privilege. That place is a place where you can store public keys. You can have as many public keys as possible in that in that location. So once you copy that public key into that location, then you can be able to use another key to access that EC2 instance. That is another key, which is the new private key that you created. You can be able to use that to access that EC2 instance. I think I did that for you when I was taking you Linux. I created keys for everybody, and everybody was logging onto the same system, but everybody had different keys that we were using. I created for Team Docker, Team Kubernetes, but it was all on the same system. You understand me? Yes. Thank you.
I get that aspect of the answer, but the question what I'm making reference to is within that instance of a VM that is running. No, you can, when you go to security, you go to key pair, you can still create a new key pair in your AWS.
You cannot attach two key pair.
You be able to use that one.
You cannot attach two key pair to an instance. You can only have one key pair that is attached to the instance. Did I answer the question?
Okay, yeah, that did.
Yes.
But
yes,
those ones you create after the launching of that instance, what then is used for that one?
The one I created after the launching of my instance. Yes, I can also use that to log into that instance, but with another user profile.
Okay, another user profile. That means
yes, sure.
User to accept that VM.
Yes. Let me show you something. Let me share my screen again. Sorry, maybe you will see this. Where is AWS EC2 instance? Okay, this is EC2 instance now. These are different EC2 instances. You get me now. I have an application here that's called Web App 1. This is the key pair. You can see Ansible is the key pair. You get me now. So if you want to come here now, security, there is no way you can attach another key pair to that EC2 instance. The only thing you can do here is maybe you want to change the IAM role of that EC2 instance. And IAM role is what this man was talking about earlier. And I think the IAM role that I have here, I don't have an IAM role yet. There's one of my instances that have IAM role. I don't remember which of these instances I have IAM role. Maybe it's this one. I think this one has an IAM role. Security, change IAM role. Okay, not this, maybe I've deleted it then, I guess. So, or it's another region. So that your key pair, you can only have just one key pair attached to it, like you can see below here now, Ansible. And I cannot say, okay, I want to change this key pair and attach it, like I want to add two key pairs to it. No, it's not possible. Do you get that?
Yes, I get that. Okay, one more thing, sorry. for dragging this. So when we are launching the instance, in this case, we selected SSH client. Now, if some peradventure, maybe we just miss our keypad or we have been saved to our machine, is there any way we can be able to get it and help us to log into that VM?
Yes, you can get the keypad that you use to log in. If you have the what's it called, if you have the private key with you, you can then log into that system itself, like in the what's it called, in the .ssh folder. You can get your what's it called, your public key in the .ssh folder. You can do that definitely.
Okay, which means when you launch that instance, immediately you're downloading the public key to your machine. If you go to your .ssh, you can just find the private key there too.
Yes, you can find it.
All right. Okay, thanks so much.
Let me try and see if I can show you something. Just a minute. Okay, let me share my screen. Just a minute. Maybe you understand what I'm saying very, very well. Sorry, I'm trying to look for the share screen option again. Okay, stop screen, share screen over XTEM. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, this is the Linux system that we just confirmed that we created that we created from an AMI. If you do the, what's it call it, cd.ssh, for example, LX, you can see authorized key. This is what I was looking for. This was what I was doing, authorized key. Now, if you can't authorize key, you will see the keypad that AWS was created. This is the keypad that AWS has created. This is the public key that AWS has created. So take, for example, if I have another key that I have created on my own and another public key, I can attach another public key to this authorized key with another new user. This is you can attach another public key to this authorized key. So you can have as many as possible authorized key to access your system. Did I answer that question?
Yes, indeed. So just like maybe open up this, maybe like here into this authorized key, then paste the new public key into it and save or what?
Yes. You just save. You just write to it. That's all. Then you can then log in with your what's it called, with your private key. That's all.
Okay, but now I understand public key. Sometimes public key is to end with the user's information, like maybe your host name. So like this one, I'm seeing that's
now another thing is that most times it's not dependent on what's called. This is the key name that AWS is giving it. You get me? That is why you have this. Now it all depends on the location where you have this, what's it called, SSH. You get me? That's the most important thing. So as far as you have the private key and the what's it called, and the public key, you can access it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome, sir. So it's in the user, what's it called? It's in the user hidden directory that you can specify. Okay, I think that will be all. So we'll be rounding up here, and next week we will talk a bit about S3, probably look into VPC, and go forward from there. I think Oluwaseun has something to say. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, Nurudeen, thanks so much for the time. Thanks for you have a way of making it look very easy. Demystify AWS for us. We really appreciate it. Like typical to our practice, still have any other areas that you feel want to touch during the week? We'll address that will help us with that during the week. Just to extend, because of time, I will try to, as much as possible, to ensure that we don't spend too much time weekends, so we can allow us to involve ourselves in other activities we want to, and also knowing fully well that we still have our weekly presentation for groups. So we'll try to maximize the time we have, so we don't do too much. Thanks for the time, and thanks for time. Every time, every weekend, as we move towards the close of the program, we see the number is dropping. This is something that was always emphasized on, that we don't expect to see more people close with us. The most important thing is just keep on pushing. And the value that has been added to you. It's not now you realize it. I've seen a lot of programs online. I've seen a lot of something similar like this that people are running, and the amount they are putting on it are like, this is serious. And so, but we're just giving this, and like we always mention and emphasize that we are doing this for free. We're not taking anything from anyone. It's just a way of giving back to the community, a way of, adding value to IT community in Nigeria. Thanks, everyone. If you have any other further information, we're going to share it on this.
Thank you, Luasha. I think I have some information from them.
Okay.
First of all, for your Azure class, that will be sharing, we'll be sharing the, the assignments to you during this weekend or latest on Monday morning. And next week, we will continue with our AWS during the week also. Yes, it's getting more intensive, And next week, Saturday, we'll be having a class on Ansible. Yes. So everything I've been doing, provisioning EC2 instances, provisioning this and that, we are now going to do it programmatically using configuration files. Just tell it Ansible run book, Ansible slash Ansible run book, Ansible playbook, and other things like that. That's what we are going to use for these things. So I want you all to also have your mind prepared. Just not possible to take extra time to learn a lot of things. Like you have to learn and learn. And yes, always be ready for us. And yes, we will definitely meet next week. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Bye. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye. Thanks so much.